Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Traffic and Conversion Conference 2018. I'm Alan Taylor here in San Diego with Amanda Holmes, CEO of Chet Holmes International, my sidekick. But today, I think I'm her sidekick because she knows everybody here. It's like everybody's walking by going, Amanda, you have hair. Isn't that funny? You've heard that? You have hair. There's a long story, everybody. If you look her up, Amanda Holmes, you'll understand. She didn't have hair for a while.
Oh, that's
by choice, right? And Jay Abraham is here. He's an icon, but your dad talks about him in his book, The Ultimate Sales Machine, over and over and over. And I thought to myself, and I get to meet this guy today. But first of all, I want Amanda, you tell us about your relationship with Jay Abraham and how long you've known him.
Just for those that maybe want to know a little bit more in the backstory, Jay has worked with over 10,000 clients in 400 industries and 7,200 sub-industries.
Actually, yeah, the industry count is 1,000 actual ones. And I'm not being rude. It's just grown since then, and we stopped counting on the sub industries, but quite a lot.
Well, tell the world what you do. How would you describe yourself?
I am a combination of business growth, I would say master or expert, but I'm also a masterful thinking partner who collaborates with entrepreneurs who want to dramatically grow a business predicated on high performance, geometric thinking, and also outrageous preeminent contributions and value creation for their marketplace. So it's a duality. It's knowing how to grow a business really explosively, but only knowing how to do it if your business is rendering some kind of really significant premier value beyond and above the competition.
You know, hearing Chet Holmes talk about you in his book, he had a tremendous amount of respect for you. I mean, for a guy like Chet Holmes to quote Jay Abraham.
Well, I had respect for him.
It was a mutual thing there.
Yes.
Maybe you could, for a moment, what was it like working with him? I'm just curious because I get to meet his wonderful daughter who I love so much.
Yes.
But I mean, I would love to have been able to meet Chet.
I'll tell you what, he was a really unique and a very focused person who was indefatigable in his work ethic. He was very creative. He was very disciplined. He had a formulation of 12 or 15 key drivers in his business growth philosophy, and he integrated them very masterfully. And I don't think I ever saw anyone who really prepared better for whatever he was going to do or whoever he was going to do it for. And he understood a different spectrum of business growth than I did, which is why we got along. He brought
the yin and the yang.
He brought a really good contrast, but it worked really well together. And he was willing to work his ass off for anybody he cared about. So, a very impressive man.
Yeah. Also, I understand you were there at the birth of Entrepreneur magazine.
I was indeed.
Isn't that cool, man?
We just found this out.
It was like the Wild West. It's a wonderful experience, and it's a hilarious story, and it was really a fascinating era of evolution in the terms of the literally the entrepreneurial spirit of the world.
It's interesting that you and I mean, we're kind of the old men of the sea of this business, you might say. And now today we have Amanda Holmes, 30, just 30.
Yes.
And I find that I am following her around to learn what the millennials are doing and what the young people are doing, because it's a new frontier for them.
Yes.
And we're the old, skull and crossbones out in the desert at this point. I mean, not so much you and not so much entrepreneur.
No, I understand.
I mean, these young people are killing it.
And I'll play a little bit of wretched ideological havoc with you. I think that there's a really interesting counter perspective. I've had the great privilege of collaborating with about 20 very prominent, iconic influencers to millennials. And I think millennials are they have an unquenchable thirst for guidance, for meaning, for greater connectivity in how to optimize the performance, the success, the fulfillment, the impact of their lives. And I've been very, very blessed and very delighted to have had influence on a lot of them. So I think that the old and the young can come together as long as you're not trying to be admonishing them or castigating them. If you're trying to share adaptive and translative experiences that they don't have the context of understanding, and you're trying to put them in a form that can be related to them, you can propel them to an enormous level.
Well, I think too many of us old guys try and castrate. Is that what you said? Castrate?
Yeah,
the young
castigate.
Oh,
we
sorry.
can castigate.
Okay. Amanda, go ahead. Take it from there.
Castigate.
Same difference.
I had an article in Inc. that went viral because it was talking about how to work with millennials, because everybody's trying to figure it out, right?
Yeah.
We're just kind of a different breed, as every generation is, right? We operate in a different way. And my mom was just telling me she'd never learned a computer class. She had never taken a class in computers, which just blew my mind, right?
Yes.
It's just different generations. But in my article, it just said that we have the same moral values.
Yes.
And if we can connect, and language aside, realizing that we may use different language, there's still that core inherent thing that brings us together. Do you have any takeaways that we could take away from how to better interact? So you said, yes, we can encourage them instead of bring them down.
Yeah. If you want me to go through a really rapidity of thoughts, I'll tell you what has resonated very universally with almost all of them. And I've done both organizations that were venture capitalists that were funding under 26-year-old entrepreneurs that were technology people who were mostly engineers. I've done a lot of the iconic people. And here's what I found. First of all, I'll give you a context. There's no human being I know, old or young, educated or not, who doesn't want to be greater at what they do. They just don't know what greatness looks like, both in how it feels, how it changes your thought process, how it manifests in your expression, and how it is received by people. What I've done with millennials is try to explain to them, number one, that they can rule the world if A, they learn, first of all, to listen, and second of all, to hear, and third of all, to acknowledge, and fourth of all, to be curious about how other people see life, because no two people are having the same experience. Third, if they are committed to collaboration. Fourth, if they are allowing themselves to be more passionate, purposeful, and see possibilities in what they do. Number five, if they are committed to growing and developing everyone around them, then they really grow themselves. There's a big article that I could send to you if you want about the emerging leadership crisis that is occurring, because sadly, many millennials, not all, they come into the world, and a lot of us baby boomers have been the progenitors of this problem. They are not necessarily good collaborators. They are not necessarily good listeners. They are more lifestyle oriented than they are career, meaning they want to be gone at 5. They need a lot of.
It's unbelievable.
No, I'm just telling you what I learned.
Yeah.
They want to basically. They have to keep their passion and purpose. They need to be nourished and nurtured differently. They want to learn, but they have an inherent, not a resentment, but an attitude, no prejudice, that some of the older people don't have value, and you have to be able to there's a word for it. You have to be able to torque down to their level, not try to bring them to yours, or you're basically going to lose. But I've been very, 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 very effective in teaching them how to be preeminent, how to be wanting to really be a meaningful leader in whatever they do. I've been very effective in getting them to see that they have the chance to make differences, not just through their job, but through what the business or their effort really achieves.
We're talking to one of the icons of the sales and marketing and traffic and conversion industry, I guess you might say. Jay Abraham. And Jay was at the beginnings of Entrepreneur, was there and was involved. And so today we have him on our radio show. Thank you very much for hanging with us for just a little bit. And you were
Thank you
right
for
in
inviting
the
me.
middle of telling a story about
I know, it was profound. It was like I was right at the critical, and you left me on the ledge.
So
Cliffhanger.
Do you remember where you were? Because I was like, oh,
Yeah,
God.
I do. So I was going to tell you, it's not an ADD moment, but 2 years ago I was asked to do something very profound in Japan, and this is not tangential. They have a huge problem with millennials. Every year, 35,000 millennials walk into the woods and commit suicide because they feel helpless, hopeless, purposeless. And we did a book to give them passion, purpose, possibility. I did a lot of reflection on that. I think the one thing you have to do with millennials is inspire them to want to grow past the rigidity of their current thinking. I've been blessed by traveling all over the world figuratively and literally. Figuratively all over in different countries, but literally, but figuratively in all kinds of industries. I've gotten to see how different ways people think, how different ways businesses transacted, how different values, how different belief systems. And the more you can expand the paradigm, the mindset, the ideological, what's the word I would call it? The ideological, I got to find the right word, of a millennial, the more powerful you make them. I have a very dear friend who has a company in Washington that is very successful, and it's almost 90% millennials. He has a absolute full-time specialist whose job it is to retain and to individually address what each millennial needs to make them purposeful, to make them passionate, to make them feel like they're part of a crusade
to help
and a
them
mission.
to the other side, you may say.
Yeah,
of
to be
whatever.
to be part of a mission, a crusade, a movement.
That's
because
awesome.
no one has done that. But I find that millennials thrive. Nobody wants to be mediocre, and nobody wants to be. If you realize it, rigidity is unfulfilling. Expansion is intoxicated. The problem is, very few people try to systematically and gently and
Pig-headedly.
to nurture a millennial to expand his or her paradigm, to show them. I mean, for example, you and I are talking, and I believe, because I've done a lot of this, no two people talking to each other have the very same definition of any word. Your definition is based on your experience,
Your upbringing,
the canvas that you're painting on.
Right.
And with millennials, it's worse because they really aren't trained to be great communicators. I have a millennial, and one time he wanted a classic car. I got him a '69 Pontiac Le Mans convertible, hot car. But I never even thought to teach him to check the oil. And he let the engine blow up because he came from the era where he was waiting for the to say, hey, check oil.
Notification on your phone.
But I think that
Just so you know.
The idiot light to turn on.
greatest gift that a more, let's say, not wise, but a more traveled adult can do to a millennial who you have to look at. Here is a sponge that has an infinite thirst, but they also have an inherent distrust, let's say discomfort, and
I think you're right, though.
unfamiliarity.
Distrust is a big one.
Well, I've done a lot of work with
Yeah.
people like Stephen M. R. Covey, who's the preeminent expert in the world on corporate trust building. And trust is very different in its actual manifestation than it is in what we believe. We think we're trustworthy, but there's so many dimensions of trust. And listening is first, acknowledging, conducting yourself authentically,
Acknowledging is
not talking behind people's back. I can go along and along.
Or posting on Twitter.
Yeah. But
social media.
But the key, the first key
to a double-edged sword. It can be evil or it can be good.
To what I'll call the millennial. I'll tell you another story. It's fun. The millennial maze is to first of all gain their trust.
Yeah.
And they have to see that your intention is their best interest. It's not to shove your ideology down their throat.
Yeah.
It's not to control them. It's to liberate them so they can be so much more, so their life can be so much more meaningful, purposeful, so they can derive so much more out of what's going on, not just economically, but psychically, emotionally, interactively, because nobody really does that for them. And I've been very blessed. I've done it worldwide, and it works.
If we don't pay it forward and help them to understand what we're doing, and I'm trying to learn from Amanda Holmes, who's 30, and I'm learning more from her any day of the week than she's learning from me at this point, because this industry, this world has left me behind if I don't choose to keep up with it. So, Amanda, I'm going to throw it over to you for your next question.
I'm loving what you're saying, Jay. And I think it's so poignant because building that trust, and you've given us really specific, I asked you for it, and you gave it right back. Step number 1, step number 2. We'll have to create a meme on that. That was fantastic.
No, and I'll be happy to give you things you can translate because we've done, and have been very well received. I have an attitude about millennials that's very, it's not just poignant, it's heartfelt. I think they are, let's take a look at it. They are going to rule the world. They are going to be the leaders, and they don't know how to lead, so they need people to help them, not criticize them, but expand their paradigm of what leadership looks like, what it means to collaborate, what it means to inspire, to develop, to unify, to collaborate, and how exciting that is as opposed to intimidating. They need to see what an organization unified on a mission can do in terms of any kind of goal or achievement. They need to learn to listen. They need to learn to appreciate. They need to learn to acknowledge others and not to patronize or manipulate, because that's the greatest growth we'll get, because you learn by all the different realities. One of the things I teach is the first thing you have to do is try to examine, explore, evaluate, understand how every millennial sees life, because that's their reality. Not yours, but it's theirs. Right. Then you've got to try to visualize what their day, what their reality is like, because you can't engage, you can't like double clutch and get into their life unless you understand the gears that are driving them. Next, you've got to be able to have them understand that you appreciate and you respect and you acknowledge that. You may not agree, but that's the reality. But only from mutual acknowledgement and trust can you bridge understanding and guidance. And you've got to be able to have them see that you are not critical. You are trying to really expand and liberate and emancipate all this greatness. Now, is a big problem. The millennials are not only going to be the leaders of the future, but they're going to be the wealth controllers, because we baby boomers are going to die. Oh, sad, sad, sad. And they're going to inherit our wealth.
Sooner so than others.
They are going to be the governing force of our society. Right. And if you look at any governing force, the most impressive ones, the most impactful ones, had advisors. They had masterful thinking partners. You have to look at your role as a masterful thinking partner. I did this will be a conclusion for you. I did an experiment a couple of months ago with a large group of accountants. Excuse my voice. We brought in 2 experts. One to teach them how to hire and motivate millennials. The other to teach them how to sell to millennials. 2 different dynamics. But without those pieces of the puzzle, entrepreneurs, CEOs, managers are going to be at a huge disadvantage. I'll leave it at that.
So valuable. Conversations like this are perfect for Entrepreneur and the Entrepreneur Network. Jay Abraham, really appreciate you taking the time, because I know you were here speaking on stage. Where can people find you on social media and the rest?
The best thing for me to share is we have a site that's quite profound. It's called abraham.com/50 shades, 50 shades, and it's got 800 hours and 10,000 pages, and it doesn't ask for an opt-in. It doesn't sell anything. We've evolved to the point where we're benefactors to the entrepreneur world. There's a lot of great clarity, and a lot of young and middle-sized youth and young adults have found great solace, great clarity. I would recommend that. And it's not to monetize it. It just gives them guidance.
Very good. Abraham.com, Amanda Holmes, Chet Holmes International, ChetHolmes.com. I'm Alan Taylor. We're here at TNC Traffic and Conversion in San Diego. We'll see you next time right here. Check back in.